I have been joined by Richard Ahiagbah, who is the Deputy Director of Communications for NPP. Good morning, Richard.
Very good morning.
How are you?
I'm quite okay. Yourself?
Good. It's always good to have you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Now that you're back from your vacation. Where did you go? I don't know.
Oh, I went to Apipe, my village.
Okay.
Yeah, to just rest. I like being in the rural area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Welcome back.
Thank you. We also have Edem Agbana, who is the Deputy National Youth Organizer of NDC. How are you?
I'm fine.
I've been warned. So
good to have you back.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed your holiday.
It was nice. It was quiet. Yeah.
I thought you would go to Dubai or something.
Dubai?
Richard should have bought a ticket for you. I mean, it's capable.
I don't know what he suggested, but I'll play along.
All right, let's take a look at our first story. Torrential rains claim 27 lives in Upper East region. I'm reading from citynewsroom.com. 27 persons have been reported dead and 19 injured after a week of torrential rains in the Upper East region. The worst hit districts are Buisa North, Buisa South, Kesina Nankana Municipal, Kesina Nankana West, and Binduri. Now, speaking to City News, the Upper East Regional Coordinator of the National Disaster Management Organization, NADMO, Jerry Asameni Aladago, said most of the deaths were recorded in the Kesina Nankana West District. So I'm going to quote him briefly. So he says, over the past week, we have experienced this torrential rains. The heavily affected areas, he mentioned the areas that I mentioned earlier, but then he goes on to say something about them not being prepared enough to handle what happened. So we are not quickening the relief stages because we are yet to take the data to be able to justify all these people, whether male or female, kids and their ages. That is the only way we can effectively distribute relief items when the data is taken. I am currently in Accra to see how to mobilize the relief items and come down. If we get all these statistics, we will be able to target the various categories of human beings and their basic needs. Currently, we are giving out mats, blankets, and mosquito nets. So that is coming from the NADMO, the Upper East Regional Coordinator of NADMO. Now, Richard, let me start here with you. The North is known for tragic incidents of floods every time it rains. Right. Is there a way NADMO could have set in place preventive measures or even a way they could have met people early on to avoid 27 people having to die?
Yeah, well, good morning, Dziffa, to your viewers and to my brother here. Special greetings to the President. I don't know, in your vacation or holiday.
Let's go ahead and answer the NADMO question. I think the President is fine.
Oh, you think it's fine?
Yeah, he's fine. Let's just head to NADMO.
Okay. Well, NADMO issue, I think, was, it recurs, like every time, like you're suggesting, it's something that happens every so often, and it's as if it always appears to catch us off guard. This, I think, would be explained fairly reasonably by them, because around this time you probably don't expect that much rain around this time. So one can understand the challenges they're facing, but I am thinking that all said, they would be a bit proactive and expeditious in mobilizing the resources, because that's a very serious situation. Apart from those who unfortunately have passed on, there are other people who are really displaced at this point and need some support to be able to manage day-to-day life. One thing I also want to highlight, so I know NADMO is engaged and they're going to do the bits as expected of them, but I think that we as a country, we should begin to think more broadly. There's a lot of discussions that I've heard going on, and I know about a number of non-profit organizations that exist in that space. We need to, as a people, begin to demonstrate the heart to be able to rally and mobilize for our people around times like this. Elsewhere, you would have seen civil society up and doing all over the space, trying to mobilize resources. We need that stream. Government, through NADMO, can do a lot of these things, but as civil society organizations that are present in that space, they must begin to engage. They must begin to make their presence be beneficial to the people. And I think on occasions like this, if they come out and organize things like, we have mobile money now, they can come out and organize events and programs such as, some relief packages that they might be putting together to send to people. And if everybody, announce a mobile money number in support of Upper East flood, victims, we can contribute 1 city, 2 city. Before we'll have substantial amounts of money to be able to help. That space is vacant. And so everything has become government's burden. And where there is a little bit of inadequacy, it shows so glaringly, and our people are left to suffer. So I think that all of us maybe can do a little more as citizens. Of course, the president gave us that open invitation to engage and participate in his government. That's a way, an avenue we can participate. But I stand with the people. I was speaking with some people that I know in the region just before coming to the studio. They are holding up well, but we need to stand and support them.
Okay, but Richard, it just rained. It wasn't anything that is so abnormal, right? So yes, rightly so, other parts of the world, if a place is hit by a hurricane, for example, that is something that we can say, okay, hurricane hit this place. We all need to get in because we were not prepared. Isn't there a way we could have been able to inform these guys? Heavy rains are about to come in. We were not expecting it. Everybody, relocate. Investing more in the preventive measures as opposed to now 1,225 houses have collapsed. Over 20 people have lost their lives. Other people are injured, and now we are reacting to it. And we're coming to Accra to mobilize relief items to get to them. Have we done right by them?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's not a question of anybody doing right or not. It's a question of us all understanding. I mean, you talk about forewarning the people that these rains are coming and relocate to where? You have an instance where really that's where people are and that's where they are grounded.
But that's why we should build. We should have had perhaps safe houses, because we know that every time it rains in the north, something like this will come out, right? So if we knew that, let's build something so that, be it a big mosque in the area or a big church in the area, whatever it is, if we have to put up something, we are investing in preparing for cases of floods, because we know that if people don't have a place to go, they will stay home, even though their houses will come collapsing on them. They have nowhere to go, so they'll stay there and they will die. This is something we can prepare ahead of time, no?
Yeah, absolutely. And
so why aren't we doing that?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
And that's not something that civil society should be doing.
Well, civil society should do it, like you're saying, and government should engage in that space. What I'm saying is that the approach to being deliberate in planning these things, we need to scale it up. Now,
have we been deliberate in planning as far as preventive measures are concerned?
Dziffa, I think if we can spend some time on this, I think that it's also a factor of how we engage these things. By the end of today and by the end of next week, if we manage to pull some support for our brothers and sisters in Upper East, and this issue will die away. You understand? We are not deliberate in terms of engaging and as a society forwarding a conversation that gives us the room to do all of this planning.
Why haven't we done
exit?
That?
Well, it's probably...
These are human lives. It should be a priority to the government.
I agree with you. And the balance of this conversation as we must have must come in part from the media, and must also come from communities and local leadership. But the thing about it is that we have so much coming our way, and we have a lot of moving parts to our conversation in the country, so much that we appear to be caught off guard oftentimes with this natural disasters. But I think going forward, and that's the reason I'm saying that, civil society occurs or organizations come to life in response to situations like this.
And my
so the
question
calls
is about
that we're
preparation.
making, absolutely, and preparation is what brings about the formation of this civil society organization, because they see a need and they come up to fill it.
What's the role of government in this?
Government is actually in the space doing what it can do through NADMO. You understand?
And has
but what
NADMO
I am saying,
done enough?
Well, NADMO,
to, as far as ensuring that if you and I find ourselves in the Upper East today and it starts raining, where are we going to go to secure our lives? You and I.
Yeah, I think you need to talk to NADMO about what they are doing, because I know they are doing quite a bit, but whether or not that will be sufficient, whether or not we need civil society to augment what they are doing, that is something we have to focus on. And in fact, also there is a mindset issue that we need to deal with, because in our country, apart from rain, we probably do not have natural disasters occur in our country so much. So our orientation is not tuned to being preemptive and deliberate about this thing. So maybe we need to forward a conversation that focuses on trying to get us to understand that we are not beyond nature's, wrath, and it can happen to us, and we need to take it more seriously and plan to put some cushion beneath our people.
Thank you, Edem.
Dziffa. Well, good morning to our cherished viewers. And let me extend my sincerest sympathies to the people of the Upper East region, and in fact the whole country, those who lost their lives, their families, and those who are injured. Their only crime is that they were born in a country where leaders talk and show very little for it. Their only crime is that they are living in areas where we all know that torrential rains is a perennial problem, but leadership failed to make the necessary preparations for them in order to save them in situations like this. In the past, it was the Bagri Dam spillage that usually will cause a thing like this. As we speak, this year, the dam has not even been opened. It means that if the dam were to be opened, the situation will be a bit more devastating than it is now. Across the world, everywhere, disasters are inevitable. Sometimes they take you by surprise. But how you respond to a disaster of this nature speaks a lot about how well or how sensitive the leadership of the country is to the people of this country. Dziffa, in 2016, Parliament reenacted the NADMO Act. So we now have Act 927, which gives NADMO the opportunity to have a paradigm shift from being reactive to a more proactive organization. And a lot of talk has been, given concerning this act. For the first time, we have a NADMO Council, or a National Disaster Management Council, which was inaugurated, a 14-member council. Now, when this council was inaugurated, one of the things that we were told by the Minister for Interior, the Honorable Ambrose Derry, was that NADMO now has the opportunity to efficiently prepare for disasters like this and then be more responsive. But do you know that as we speak, Dziffa, the regional coordinator of NADMO has come to Accra to now come to beg for relief items? From the onset, his only call was to call on philanthropists and NGOs, and donors to come in and support. But from the very basic, government ought to be the one in charge. Then we all know that maybe because of limited resources along the line, you are unable to really satisfy everybody. But you start something. What is it? That this is a national crisis. 27 lives should be able to invoke a national response. Do we have to have the coordinator traveling all the way from the Upper East region to come to Accra to come and beg for relief items. We are not serious as a country. If I were the president and I'm serious about my citizenry, by now the Director General of NADMO and the regional coordinator should be sent home. 27 lives. Many others are injured. Over 1,000 houses have been affected. 286 houses completely collapsed. Bridges have collapsed. And do you know the most devastating thing about it? This is the time that in that area, this is the time that they are preparing to harvest. So there are even implications on food security. As we speak, their groundnut, their maize, and even their animals completely gone. This is a national crisis. But even look at the importance that we attach to it, apart from Citi Online and even maybe the Daily Graphic, how many people, even the media, are talking about it? And why are we waiting as NADMO to get the regional coordinator come to Accra to now beg for relief items? They should be a bit more proactive. When you go back to the Act 927, it is stated there that we ought to establish a National Disaster Management Fund. From 2016 till today, what have you been doing? Since President Akufo-Addo took over, why haven't you established that fund? Because when you have that National Disaster Management Fund, then in a situation like this, you have some resources from the basics to start moving with. It is failure of leadership, and I think that if I were the president, I should be firing the Director General of NADMO, both the regional director and the national, the people at the head office. Because their response to this thing has been some lackadaisical attitude. And it's as if those lives that have been lost, we are not attaching any level of importance to them. And it is very, 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 very sad. And I'm expecting the president to take some action on this particular issue.
Okay.
Dziffa, another thing about this whole thing is that, you see, we have been talking about climate change for a while. Mm-hmm. You may be wondering why the rains are coming more in October this time around and the damage that has been caused. Are you aware that when you go to those areas, the Karaga areas, the Bilsa areas, and all of that, the kind of dissipation that has been caused to the forest reserve because of the rosewood? I know for a fact that even the member of parliament for Bilsa South, Dr. Clement Apak, has been chasing the special prosecutor to prosecute officials of the Forestry Commission and other officials who are supervising that level of destruction to the forest. Apart from even rosewood, even the dawadawa, I am told, in those forest reserves. So all these things, it's an accumulation of some of this, and that is why today we have that level of effect. The question I want to ask, that if even just the rains has caused destruction to over 1,800 houses, 285 completely collapsed, 27 lives lost, many others injured. What will happen if in this situation the Burkina Faso decides to open the Bagri Dam? It will even aggravate the situation. I think that NADMO must be a bit more responsive than they are doing now. Currently, all I can say is that they have failed and the president must take some action on this.
Thank you. Richard.
We shall overcome. Very, very unfortunate listening to my brother.
What's unfortunate about it?
A lot of talk, no input. As though he is alien in this country, unaware that his own government or his own party led this country and did nothing, built nothing, ensured nothing. And all they can do today is to profit off of the painful occurrence in the Upper West. Very painful.
Upper East.
Upper East. Very painful. You see, we have gotten to a point where the NDC has to understand that we're building a country. Mm-hmm. And that is a continuum. And what they do is what other people build on. They have ruled this country for so long, built zero in terms of any social infrastructure, okay, to which we should be trying to more or less boost today or give more support to. Zero. Okay. And so when something happens like this, I suppose that we should take it as a learning moment where we rationally get people in the room who are thinking, who are saying that we've missed opportunities in the past to make progress forward. Now let's take this moment and do something with it. Because in the end, okay, we'll finish talking here and go. But then the people who will live with this want solution.
Okay.
And that's where I expect that we should have constructive conversation. Because I was telling you earlier that much of the problem we're having is the kinds of conversation we're having around this. Because when we finish today, and my brother will think, oh, I've just scored some political point about Nanado must do this, and that's the end of it. But that's not what the people want. The people want us to do something. And that's what we're saying, that we must encourage government. I told you to speak to NADMO, see what they are doing. Okay, because they are the operating unit. I agree with you. Right? I want them to give you.
So, Richard, tell us why over 1,000 houses, over 1,000 people have been displaced.
Yeah.
Almost 30 people have died.
Yeah.
And the NADMO rep has to come to Accra to get relief items for Ghanaian citizens in the Upper East. Can you answer that? But we'll go for a quick break. Then you answer exactly why it is.
You asked a question just to go to break.
We'll go for a quick break. So don't go anywhere. Breakfast Daily will be right back. Welcome back. This is Breakfast Daily on Citi TV. Thank you so much for staying with us. We are discussing the torrential rains in the Upper East region that has cost the lives of 27 Ghanaians. 1,225 houses have collapsed, and the Upper East Regional Director of NADMO is saying that he's in Accra to get relief items to the people in the Upper East. And my question to Richard is, why is that the case? Why is it that we don't have in place emergency funds for him to know that this is an emergency? Let's get these funds, let's get these people everything they need, so that at least they know that we may not have been able to help them deal with the floods while it was going on, but they are safe.
Yeah, I think by and large, the report talks about efforts being made.
No, they just said they gave them mats.
Yes,
and that was it.
That's a base, more or less, survival provision that is being made. Over and above that, I think is working with the leadership to kind of mobilize resources. Now, I wanted to talk more about why we're here. You understand? And that's why I expect some humility.
No, but even if, let's assume that NDC did absolutely nothing for the country.
Right.
And we started from zero.
Yeah.
Shouldn't we have been in a position where we can at least respond to rains? We're not talking about a hurricane here.
In terms of what?
In terms of there's a fund available for emergency cases. Yeah. If something happens to us right now as we are here and we're stripped of everything, whoever is in charge of NADMO in Accra should be able to dip into that fund, say, guys, you are in this safe home, you have your basic necessities met, you're going to get breakfast, lunch, dinner provided because government has allocated this fund for you. Yeah. Imagine he comes to us and says, okay, now I have to go to Kumasi to go mobilize relief items for you. Does that sound to you as a country that places any value on your life as a citizen of Ghana?
Absolutely. It's a country that appreciates its citizens, and it comes at a very high level of this government. And what we need to understand is that the very immediate supplies have been provided. Over and above that, they are working to be able to provide more extensive support for the people. Now, what
they've given out are mats.
Yes.
Blankets.
Yes.
Mosquito nets. Yes. That's it.
Yes.
There's no mention of food.
Yeah.
There's no mention of even the mats that have been provided. We don't know where these people are sleeping.
Yeah.
Is it a safe space? Are there places for them to at least keep their valuable items?
Of course, of course.
Are there measures being put in place to ensure that their homes are going to be fixed in a week or two so they can go back to their lives? People have lost their whatever it is that they're planting. They've lost their animals. They've lost their properties.
Let's see.
And they've been provided mats, blankets, and mosquito nets. And he's now in Accra to mobilize for relief items.
Yes.
This is something that he should
Yeah.
readily have access to.
Yeah. So
In the Upper East.
Yes.
Not even leave Upper East to Accra.
Yeah. So let's get to a point where we're just not, belaboring the point. The point we're making is that the initial existential survival needs have been provided.
Okay.
They are working to add on to that. Now, you see, one thing we miss, and it's important we underline that in this country, is that when situations come, instead of having constructive, forward-looking discussions about them, we tend to sectionalize it and begin to point hands there, point hands there. That was why I was disappointed a little bit what my brother was doing. Okay. But what we must do is, you see, this issue has an insurance component in it, right? Where is our insurance companies? Would they not have been able to seize on this moment, put products, creative products that would help people in that kind of income bracket or location, given that is flood prone and everything, packaged products that can serve a need. So right now, we're not talking about government necessarily only being able to provide or restore people to where they were before, but insurance can swoop in and be able to solve that problem. So these are issues that when they come up, we need to sit and engage in discussions that move the ball forward. That, for me, is more productive. That, for me, was what the president was pointing us to say, let's be citizens. So that when we look at the issues are in our space. We are the only people who dialogue about them. The question is, how are we discussing them? How are we approaching them? Are we approaching them by means of scoring points or by way of looking at lasting solutions? Using it to inform our thinking, to say we need policy, we need organizations, we need to plan to prevent these things, at least put ourselves in better situations to overcome or to deal with these things when they happen. And I think that should be the nature and tone of this conversation. It should be focused on finding solutions and trying to make sure that we are providing sufficiently for our people. If we focus that way, we'll drive government in that direction, even though government is going in that direction, but we'll push even a little harder. The call to be citizen is now, and it must come in all forms, not just when we're demonstrating or doing other things, but contributing constructively and doing our little bit to be able to help. And you, corporate citizens, the Citi FM network, or the Citi, how do you call it? Is it a
Citi TV.
Citi TV. Well, okay. So your establishment, I think, is a very good example of corporate citizens that are engaged in trying to move this country forward. I cannot give you guys credit enough. That's what we need all across this country to ensure.
Have we done right by the people of the Upper East, from your estimation? Because we do have the policies, we do have the organization, we do have the planning. What went wrong?
You see, you're going back to exactly what I said.
What I'm saying is that
now,
how do we ensure that
yes.
now that we do have the policies, we do have NADMO, how do we ensure that this does not happen again in future, where something as terrible as just a rain, something as simple as a rain will happen, people will be displaced, and then the coordinator there will need to go to a different region to mobilize resources for us? How do we ensure that in future we prevent this and that there's something available for them to just dip in and solve the problem?
In Greater Accra, or the capital of the country, it's not a different region, it's the source. Mm-hmm. So when it's here, it's not out of place.
Yes, but still.
But the point
shouldn't there have been something in the place so that he can get everything he needs there?
Of course there is.
So how do we ensure that in future we extend the same thing to all the other regions?
So there is, which is what has been given. And over and above that, he's working to actually look at a lasting way to address the issue and to put the people back where they were. And so that would be done. But your question earlier, how do we ensure? We ensure by having the conversation we must have today. We must be engaged, not just today or tomorrow and be done with it, but let's engage. Like you guys have carried on. The misconduct or the indiscipline on our roads, you've been consistently pushing this. I'm sure some people are moderating their behavior as a result, and I hear some are calling, they don't see you around anymore, and they want you back on the roads. But we must engage in that conversation. So it's consistency, it's nation building, it's not a magical enterprise. Especially when the administration before you did nothing and you have had to carry the water not only for the moment you are in, but for the moment past when people were supposed to be investing in this infrastructure for the country. They failed to do so. And it pains when those same people try to play, ostrich, and they moralize to you as though they have done what they're supposed to do.
All right, thank you very much.
Dziffa, I
Briefly.
think that, Richard went on and on and on and on, hasn't said anything.
Okay.
Because I pointed out specific things that leadership currently has failed to do. You claim that the previous regime hasn't done anything, but they reenacted the NADMO law. All you ought to do was to establish the fund. You haven't done that. It is failure of leadership. You don't want to accept it. As we speak, a major disaster like this, and the NADMO coordinator from the region has to be in Accra to be begging. 27, one life is enough to invoke some national response. And that is what we're talking about. In September 2009, when Mr. Kofi Portofeu was the NADMO boss, a similar thing happened. Even then, the situation is not as, devastating as it is today. No lives were lost. But within 24 hours, and you can check the record, on 11 September, Mr. Kofi Portofeu flew from Accra with his team, and they went to respond to the situation, went to relieve items, and help salvage the situation. We are talking about lives being lost, and you are here, and all you are saying is that, we have to be citizens and not spectators. Being citizens and not spectators moves beyond just the rhetorics. We have to show leadership and hold people that we give power, people that we are paying, we must hold them accountable. You have lives being lost, and you are not being responsive.
How should they have addressed this issue from your perspective?
From one, you ought to attach a lot of importance to it, such that you respond as a national team. As we speak, what has been done is that they have as we speak, all of them are sleeping in classrooms and churches and all of that. These communities have been displaced. They have not even provided them with relief items.
Oh, they have mats, blankets, and mosquito nets.
Those are, like I said, those are the basic necessities.
Yes. So it's a good first
that they have
point.
started. Even that, it hasn't covered everybody. And you can check from the grounds. And when the snow, you see, you haven't been there. As I speak, yesterday, even Honorable James Agaga, as the member of parliament, the communities and the people that have not been reached, he was going with foodstuff and some of these mattresses. And when they contacted the regional director, he said that they didn't have relief items because they were not prepared for this. And that he was in Accra coming to lobby. A simple phone call in an organization that is serious about lives should have saved this situation, and we will not be discussing this today. Take responsibility instead of putting everything on the previous government.
Thank you very much. We do have to move on now to the next story.
Just a very brief thing.
You can tie it into your response to the next one. Is that okay? Thank you very much. Government must terminate PDS concession agreement now. That's coming from Agbana, and I'm reading from citinewsroom.com. A former minister of power wants government to abrogate its concession agreement with PDS. According to Dr. Agbana, the government must not hesitate to terminate the deal for proper distribution of power to parts of the country because it has already failed to honor parts of the conditions for the agreement. I'm going to quote him briefly. You don't go into a bid, set up conditions, precedents, and consciously violate the principles underlining the tender and think it is closure. The basis of the contract has been destabilized. I sincerely believe that we should give the concession agreement to the original owner to manage, that's ECG. What should be happening is that we should have the courage of conviction to terminate the contract, which should not even exist in law. This is because we have breached the conditions precedent. It is a condition for termination. They should cease to be PDS and the contract taken away from them, and then we decide whether we still want the concession option or private sector participation. So let's hear your thoughts on this PDS termination issue that Agbana has brought up. We know that PDS was suspended. The energy minister even came out to say that they had, committed a fraudulent act. And he's saying if they've breached the contract, why don't we just terminate it altogether and give it to ECG?
What I was going to say is that in this country we have to be serious.
Okay.
We are where we are in terms of disaster relief in this country because the NDC failed.
Okay.
Failed in doing what?
That's fine.
And all...
But you mentioned that we should make progress.
Yes, we're making progress.
Okay, we're
No,
making
stated what
progress.
your
And
government
respectfully,
has
when
done.
you were
We need-
speaking,
we
he
need-
did not
But
come
he needs
in.
to, because I will not
That's
come
fine.
back on this topic.
That's fine.
I
That's
stated what your
fine.
government
We
is not
need-
doing.
That's
So
fine.
tell me what
So
the NDC didn't do.
Edem said...
What did NDC didn't do?
He's
in terms of
interrupting me,
disaster
by the way,
Let's
so
allow
we need to
Richard
be
to speak.
orderly.
Yes, please,
Now, what I'm
continue.
trying to say is this, that for 8 years...
But we're now going back.
Yes.
But you said we should make progress.
I'm trying to underline for us because you raised a critical question of how we ensure that this thing don't recur.
Yes.
And I'm saying that for 8 years, we had a government, okay, that ruled this country, and all they can do for us as far as disaster preparedness is to deliver to us a legislation.
Okay.
And they're asking for that legislation to be implemented by another. They didn't do anything.
Government is
They
continuing,
succeeded.
right?
I agree with you. So all they did was to give us a paper, which anybody can do in their dream.
Really?
Yes, because that's what it says. Because it says that they
Anyone
passed
can
a
put a
legislation.
legislation
Of course.
in their dreams?
Why? You know how
Okay.
many legislation we can pass if we want to, really?
Okay.
That's
Okay,
all we
but
want to do in
government is
8 years.
continuum, right?
I agree. So if government is continuum, and you know all you have done is to deliver a paper for another to implement, then you don't moralize. You don't act as if you have done something the person is not doing. We need to get that in
That's
context.
fine. Okay, let's move on.
Now, what we're trying to
PDS.
say with PDS is...
Let's terminate the contracts altogether instead of keeping them suspended.
I think it's an ongoing conversation. Government has not indicated its position on the matter. But the terms in which the former Power Energy Minister puts it, I think is overly simplistic.
How so?
In a sense that he appears to think that government can wake up one morning and just say, this is it. The complications, the interconnectedness of the deal is not appreciated in his comment. And so I think that it was this government, okay, that realized, based on the continual pursuit of the contract and the due diligence that was continually being done, that they found out that there is something amiss, and they followed suit and then brought this case to us. It wasn't the former
independent body or
yes,
anything,
and it
right.
wasn't, by the way, the former power minister, is it the Honorable Cobra Donko, who came up with that finding. It was this government.
That's fine.
And so that must be highlighted for
Okay.
him to appreciate that this government is focused, this government is working on it, and will pursue the best possible means to bring proper resolution to the matter if it must be. Okay. And now we need to also understand the remnants, and I think that is the part of the next issue we're going to talk about, the remnants of the NDC's legacy in power, which he was part of as a minister. We're dealing with presently with Mr. Agbana in pursuit of some judgment debt recovery. A problem that this country has to deal with because of the negligence of the NDC. So we're not going to take advice from them based on the record.
But he's still a citizen of the country, right? And he still can contribute to the national discourse.
Of course. The fact that you've been a citizen doesn't mean you give bad advice.
Okay, so you think terminating the contract of PDS is a bad advice?
It's bad advice given his record to say that you summarily do things without recourse to proper establishment that governs the
But if someone has
concession.
breached a contract,
Yes.
the energy minister came out to say that they had committed a fraudulent act. That's a very big accusation. Why don't you just terminate their contract as opposed to just suspending it? Is it so bad to say, let's just terminate it and give it to ECG? ECG is handling it anyway.
Yeah, so one morning, Mr. Komna Donko is expecting one Sunday morning or whatever, just say we're done.
No, he stated why.
What I'm saying, I mean, I've just told you that everything is stated has no full appreciation of the complication of the deal.
Okay.
Okay? It is not only the government of Ghana who just wake up one morning and say we're done. You understand? So he doesn't appreciate the intricacy. And that's what I'm saying, that's what they did. And landed Ghana in a lot of mess that we have had to pay out millions and millions of cedis, some of which we're trying to recover. So I'm saying that on a practical basis, they don't have what it takes to give that advice is given. And I think that this government is doing all it can diligently to ensure that our eyes are focused on ensuring value for money and ensuring that the best thing is done by Ghana.
Thank you very much. Edem.
Dziffa, I would wish to get back to the conversation on...
Let's make progress. Let's make progress. Let's go to PDS.
Anyway.
Respectfully.
But Dziffa, on the issue of PDS, my brother is just being very, very, very arrogant.
How so?
In making a claim that because of the NDC's previous records, we cannot advise them, or Honorable Dr. Kwabena Donko cannot be the one advising them on whether or not to terminate the PDS deal.
Okay.
When you are in government, you ought to listen to what your people say, especially with regards to a deal that even your own Minister of Energy, the Honorable Peter Amewu, has said that PDS presented fraudulent documents. It wasn't Dr. Kwabena Donko that put such words in his mouth. It is not the NDC that terminated the contract for further investigations. We didn't tell the NPP that, go out and say that the deal was fraudulent. We didn't tell the NPP that PDS should not meet conditions 24 and 31, which makes the deal even illegal. That before you meet, you see, so these are the issues that we have to be talking about, not
but what's wrong
just
with suspending them and then investigate exactly what happened?
Let me, he made another
Okay.
malicious claim that the NPP governments by themselves decided to abrogate or suspend the contract for investigation when, I mean, out of their own internal whatever, trying to take credit for it. In March 2019, the Honorable John Jinapo wrote a letter to the president exposing the deal and stating the reasons why the deal ought to have been terminated. That letter was made public. They refused. They told us that the deal is clean, is squeaky clean, and everything about the deal was perfect. And they went to town with that kind of information. And let me say this, an authority that because of the many other partners involved, including MIDA, including the Americans, that is why government was forced to even suspend the deal in the first place. Because we brought their attention to the fraudulent deal as far back as March. They refused to listen because of this same posturing that you were in government, you didn't do A, B, C, and D, so you cannot advise us. You were going to pick up a deal. I say this PDS matter is very basic, very fundamental. You want to take over a certain company, and there are conditions that you ought to meet. You decided to fraudulently change the conditions that are precedent, which means that you ought to meet those conditions before the company is handed over to you.
So the energy minister
You didn't meet them.
They didn't meet it.
We
They're
wrote
on
to them.
suspension
We
now,
brought their-
and it's being investigated.
And we asked that because,
Can we just allow the
it is
process to
fraudulent.
happen?
No, you see, this, let's just allow the process
Because
to
they're
happen.
investigating. They
Let's-
need to conclude the investigations. You can't
What
just...
information did the Minister for Energy have at the time he described the deal as fraudulent? Suspend them, let ECG...
They've suspended them and they've allowed ECG
and
to
let
take over.
ECG take over, terminate the contract, because some things are very basic. Dziffa, is it not all of us have agreed, including the MPP, that conditions 24 and 31 of the deal is condition precedent. And we have all agreed that PDS fails to meet those two conditions. Is it not true? So if in a deal, two conditions are so critical, they are so important, it's like saying that I want to employ presenters at Citi TV. And one of the conditions is that you should have a background in journalism. Somebody comes, stated that he or she has a background in journalism, then just when you start work, we discovered that you didn't really have that background. It is just something that you may have put on your papers, on your CV. What happens?
Person is still innocent until proven guilty. You have to investigate it and then come up with the results of your investigation.
It is basic. So the minister even has agreed that they didn't meet those conditions that are precedent. So what are we still waiting for?
Okay.
Terminate the contract.
That's fine.
So it is not a matter of what the NDC didn't do and all of that. And this kind of posturing is not good for the country because you are in government. Fraudulent things are happening. You are even reapportioning some of the shares. We are speak to these issues instead of saying that the NDC doesn't have the moral authority
Thank you very
to speak
much.
about this.
I do want to touch on the Woyome story.
Yes, of course.
So
I think I kind of snuck into it already.
So should we
now, here's the
just
thing.
move to that?
We will. Now, here's the thing. We need to be very clear.
Okay.
And your platform is a serious platform. So facts are facts. Okay? At no point was any condition specific to what was found out for which the contract was suspended changed from precedent condition to subsequent. Matter of fact, Okay? So my brother must understand that when we have these conversations.
Okay.
Now,
please.
It's not a question of just challenge.
What are the conditions?
Please. It was a demand guarantee. No, it was a demand guarantee.
Did they present it?
Oh, my brother.
Did they present it?
Don't argue. You can go and look for it.
The energy minister came out to say the demand guarantee was fraudulent.
Was never.
You're not running the program.
Please allow him to finish his point. Do you agree that the energy... Allow him,
as you and I are on this program, you can have your producers check,
they can
as we speak in real time, to say, was that condition ever changed to conditions subsequent?
Did they meet it?
Okay. What did the energy minister come out to say about the demand
guarantee? The energy minister spoke on the same day the Minister of Information
what did the energy minister say?
Listen, please. Let's get serious. The Minister of Energy spoke the same day.
What did he say that day?
Let me just speak.
I'm allowing you to speak.
So stop asking the question when I speak. Dziffa, the Minister of Energy spoke the same day. On the same platform, the Minister of Information announced that the government has suspended the contract pending investigation into the insurance guarantee that was submitted. Okay. And in speaking in his words, said it was fraudulent.
What did the energy minister say? Because now you've told us what the information minister said.
Yes.
Which
is exactly the same thing that information minister said. There were material breaches, and that is why we're suspending the contract. And so it will be investigated. It has been investigated. The report is being worked on. So what I am saying is that we need now to ensure that the discussion is proceeding factually. So the conversation around this insurance guarantee, which he is trying to portray as changed from condition precedent to subsequent, I'm saying that is not factual. So we can move on.
No, my question to you now is, exactly what did the energy minister say about the demand guarantee from PDS?
But he said there was, I think, I can't remember, he used the word fraud.
It was fraudulent.
Yes.
And if you have a contract with someone as big as PDS to handle the energy sector, and you find that their demand guarantee is fraudulent, isn't that cause to terminate the contract?
To be very serious with you,
it's a question.
And to deal with government as we have to deal with it, I will speak to the position of the information minister.
Not the energy minister.
Not the energy minister.
But he's the person in charge of the sector.
No.
He's not in charge of the energy sector?
I am telling you, I'm speaking to the one who speaks for government.
Not the one who works within the sector?
You're not listening to me.
I am.
I am speaking to the official information position of the government. And that which was confirmed in the report to say there were material breaches which necessitated the government to suspend the deal. So we're speaking to that. And we're saying that at no point was the condition to provide insurance guarantee changed from condition precedent to subsequent. Factual information. So what we're saying is that government is doing all the needed diligence it must do. And for those who have led and landed Ghana in debt as a result of ill-advised actions taken on legal matters, are not in a better place to advise on legal issues. Factual matter. And by the way, it was in this same country when people are talking about posture and those things, in this country when a president told a vice presidential candidate that they cannot advise him. We are not taking that posture.
Unfortunately. Thank you very much. I'll just give you 1 minute because we ran out of time.
I am reading. You can check from the media website. I'm reading their own report. And when you read that report on the PDS, on the page 5, under Conditions Precedent CP Committee, the last paragraph, it is read that the Ghana Conditions Precedent Committee has since the transfer date been converted into Conditions Subsequent Committee. The precedent means that it ought to have been met even before the deal takes off. You didn't do that.
And that's according
the deal
to
took off, and that is according to it. Two conditions.
So we need to find the results of the government's investigations as well, right?
You have been so dishonest, my brother.
That's perfectly fine.
Everybody knows that those conditions that are precedent were not met.
You didn't come here to talk. You came here to attack myself. That's very unfortunate.
You
been dishonest, and the report is there.
No, that's not what
we understand. It's unfortunate he's talking the way he's talking, but for me, I'll stick stick to the issue.
Maybe the question he must
If
be
you don't have
answering
anything
is
to
that
say, you attack
the
people.
question
That is
he must
clear.
be answering
no.
is that were the conditions that were supposed to be met before were they met? Yes or no?
I challenge you to tell your producers to set.
Dr. Kwabena Donkor said the agreement should be terminated. You agree with him, you don't. Can we agree to that? Thank you very much.
I didn't agree or disagree. I'm saying that there must be diligence done before anything like that
can be done. Perfect.
It's just about being proper.
Eric Edem Agbana is the Deputy National Youth Organizer of the NDC, and Richard Ahiagbah is the Deputy Director of Communications for MPP. Thank you both so much for being with us. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And thank you at home for joining us as well. Do not go anywhere. Hi guys, I hope you enjoyed this video.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Citi TV.
For exclusive breakfast daily content and other Citi TV programs.
Like, comment, and share with your friends.